the future. Do they catch the guy?
Summer, you're next.
So I like throwing, because I have some extra time, I like throwing some curveballs to like sort of get to know people at the beginning of an interview. So I'm very curious, if you could have like an hour-long conversation with any actor or director that is no longer with us, who would you like to speak to and why?
Wow.
It's basically a way to find out like who you're a fan of.
Yeah. I mean, do they have to be dead?
No?
Oh, okay. I would have an hour-long conversation with Tom Hanks. I just think he's the most incredible actor of our time, and he somehow has this ability to transport me in every one of his movies to a different place. There's actors that I like who are sort of the same in every movie, and that's okay. Like, that's one thing. But he's different in every movie in a special way. So as a director, I would love, and I think just he's a filmmaker in general. I would love to pick his brain about why he makes the choices he makes, how he learns to make the choices that he makes. His favorite directors that he's worked with, what are their styles? Like, everything he touches turns to gold, and I admire that. And I also think he's careful about creating sort of a body of work that, not to say that it's feel good, but that it's elevated and smart and has messaging that feels important in our human experience.
I loved everything you said, and the other reason I like this choice is because he's the nicest person. Like,
is that really true?
It's crazy how nice he is.
Amazing.
Like, I have nothing but positive things to say, unlike, anyway, you know what I mean? He's just a really nice guy. When you think about, what did I think? Oh, when you think about everything you've worked on, what shot or sequence has been the toughest of your career thus far?
Wow. Well, I just did some work that I probably can't talk about.
Or can you? No, I don't want to get you in trouble.
I just directed 4 episodes for season 2 of School Spirits, and we did some crazy things on this season. I directed the first 2 episodes and the last 2 episodes, and it really feels like, when season 2 all of a sudden is like, okay, season 1 was one thing, and now this show is going to be something so different and much bigger and much crazier and not what you expect at all. But that involves things like sinking entire sets underwater and some huge stunts I've never done before. And so those things sort of were challenging in terms of just like the technicality of directing. But there have definitely been, I think Pure, the Blumhouse movie I made for the Into the Dark series on Hulu, had challenges because it was a 16-day shoot and a lot of beautiful ensemble cast, but a lot of people to cover, and a lot of the only reason I really I'm a actor's director at heart. I just love working with actors, and I want to have time to truly get to a place of sort of them being able to be just living in the moment, but also the chaos of just you're being real and all these things are coming together, and maybe the scene changes in a special way. And I feel like when you're working really fast, it can be hard to get, beyond 2 takes and to really get to play. And so for me, that's the hardest part.
Yeah, it's amazing to me. I'm fortunate enough to speak to so many people about what it's like making a film or a TV show. And the one thing I hear from everyone is they just wish they had more time.
Yeah.
It's just time. That's the most valuable commodity on a film set.
It's really true.
Jumping into why I get to talk to you.
Yes.
Where did this idea come from? And was it always this thing that you wanted to make? Was it another script that you had that you were like, you know what I mean? Like, how'd this one come about?
I was sent Michael Kennedy's script for Time Cut and fell in love with it. And then I just got to do some rewriting on it to sort of hone in the sisterhood angle. So truly it is his story, and he is a genius. What an incredible idea to mash up, sci-fi, horror, time travel, slasher. The second I read it, for me, it was a no-brainer. And then to just find this beating heart at the center of it, which was truly that it's a love story about 2 sisters, I was sold.
So time travel, sci-fi, it's like my favorite genres. So one of the things about time travel movies is you can really get in the weeds of describing how it all works. And then you can sort of be like, this is there, but it's not you know what I mean? So how much did you debate how much you wanted to depict of the time travel and the rules and everything else? Like, how did that all, you know what I mean?
I mean, if I could have the hours of my life back that we spent talking about how much we should tell, what should the third act be, what should happen, what would happen in reality, drawing diagrams of, Quinn A, Quinn B, Quinn C, etc. No, I think that this is a challenging genre for a reason, and I just followed Robert Zemeckis' lead. He said, less is more. If you can, don't talk about it. And I think that that's really helpful. I mean, there were versions of this script and there were versions of the movie that talked about it much more than we do now. And it always ended up sort of being unsatisfying because the more you talk about it, the more you see the holes. And they always exist, the holes. So.
Well, the thing I've learned is that your imagination is always the most powerful thing. So as much as you can lean into people's imagination, I think.
Yes.
Yeah,
I think exactly what you said is right, because people will fill in the gaps actually in a beautiful way. Whereas if you explain them, they have a reason to think that they're right and you're wrong.
So I'm fascinated by the editing process. You touched on it a little bit. You get in the editing room, you show it to friends and family. What did you learn from those early screenings, and what were some of the big changes that ended up happening to the film?
I think editing really is the third time you make a movie, right? And my favorite time. I mean, I live to be on set, I live to be with the actors, but I get real excited to roll up my sleeves and get in the edit bay with an editor and be very decisive. Like I don't cry at all over dead babies. I just kill them left and right.
Sure.
And the best thing that happened to this movie and to most of the things I work on is just getting to the right length. Like, and that had to do with sort of like deciding what was extraneous, what was not needed, and continuing to just dial up the sister's story. Like, I think that's what can surprise me sometimes in the edit bay is when you sort of find your North Star and you let that guide you. And so as soon as we sort of like really clung to the sisterhood story, then the shape of it was much easier to find.
Do you remember what the last thing you cut out was before you picture locked?
Oh, man, great question. Actually, yes, or close to. The last thing we cut out of this movie was a side character, telling our main character the date. And it was an interesting choice because it's actually in the trailer. But
Is it back in 2003?
Yes, telling her what day she's sort of arrived in.
Got it.
And now it's done in sort of she gets to realize it by looking around and figuring it out. And I always love moments like that where you realize like you don't have to hold the audience's hand as much as you think you might. And it's a fine line because sometimes you do. Sometimes you want to explain things to, everyone. But I loved that we sort of made this choice like everyone's going to be on this ride with us. They're going to figure it out.
How did you figure out and how did you work on the script with like who the antagonist was ultimately going to be and like ultimately what the ending was going to be? And this might be something that I run after release.
Okay. Yeah, I think it's a very exciting twist and I hope that nobody sees it coming. But to me, one of the things that we really worked on in the script phase and prep was making it feel motivated and yet somehow disguised. And that was a big challenge. But I hope that the movie sort of succeeds in when hopefully everyone's surprised by who the slasher is and then also goes, oh yeah, that was right in front of my face the whole time. And there's also like this great messaging around it, like, don't be a dick.
Yeah, no, I did not see it coming. What I like is it plays into the rules of time travel, if you will. You know what I mean? Like,
yes.
If that makes any sense.
No, it 1,000% does. And it also makes sense to our theme, which is you get to be who you choose to be every minute. Like, you don't have to be who you thought you were a minute ago,
Who was the toughest to cast and why?
Great question. I mean, I think us figuring out who our lead was going to be was always hard. And getting Madison Bailey was incredible because Lucy is such a sort of she's a character who's flawed but also strong, and I loved that as a female character. Is she's not taking a back seat to her life by any means, but she's sort of forced between a rock and a hard place because her family is so consumed with grief, and so she's forced to have less agency than we want her to have, and she's able to sort of find that in the past.
On that note, I need to stop. I'm just going to say congrats, and I really hope it's a big hit. And have fun editing School Spirit Season 2.
Thank you so much. Thanks a lot. It was a pleasure.